Sean, can you hear me? Oops, that's the wrong one.
Yeah, I can hear you.
There we go. What's up, my friend? How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing good. Just got to watch Greg Locke just nail it down, man. Every bit of globe evidence that you could ever want was right there for you. He had nothing, man. He had absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I guess if you have a large audience, I think course correcting on this particular topic is probably the scariest thing in your life as a pastor.
I can't imagine. I think that for like a teacher, professor, I don't even know if a human being is capable of it, to be honest with you. Have you ever seen anybody do a turn like that?
Just Rob Skila.
Yeah, and Rob, he had to go in kicking and screaming.
Yeah,
he wouldn't even say it. Yeah, he wouldn't even say it. And then I remember when he did, because he just kept getting closer and closer, and then eventually he had to go with the way the evidence goes. But most people are not like that. Most people, and I don't know if it's a brain condition or something, but you really protect your craft. Now, again, people want to say that about us. So, Jaron, you would never admit that you're the globe because you have this chance. It's like, yeah, but we already switched. You're missing the point. Switched. Right? You already missed. You missed the point.
You and I grew up indoctrinated with the globe. Like absolutely. It really. Sometimes when I debate people on different Christian topics about the Bible, I have to say at the very beginning of the debate, hey, I'm a normal guy that grew up in public education. I grew up in a church. I learned all the things that you learned. I didn't grow up on some island somewhere isolated, being told about FE and the law of God. Like I grew up just like you, man. I watched Thundercats as a kid. I ate Lucky Charms. I played in T-ball. I played football till I was a senior in high school. Like I'm just a normal dude.
Right.
I pressed in and found the truth.
Yeah, it's possible. It's just crazy to me that these guys, I mean, he acted tonight like, I don't know what you would call it. It's just, they're so out of their league when it comes to this, because he should have thought to himself, Dean Odell's put in 8-9 years. I don't know. I think he came a flat earther in 2015, like most of us. And so, you're talking about 9 years or so that he's put into this. And then for Greg to say, oh, I just, I basically picked it up last week or whatever, is he should have known he's outmatched. So you have to bring evidence. He didn't bring one bit of, and I was really thinking, I said, how is he going to do this? I said, how do you argue, globe earth from a biblical standpoint? I was like, this is going to be interesting to see. Well, that he showed exactly how you do it. He took Nathan Roberts' stuff, attacked it, which none of us, I was sitting here saying, hey, I don't disagree with him. A lot of those are not flat earth Bible verses. So,
that's right, yeah.
Yeah. Again, Nathan was writing a book. You know how that goes, but it's still, that is a straw man when you basically are building somebody's belief. If you want to debate Nathan Roberts in your private time, go do that. But not on a public stage when like none of us believe that. It's not like he's the head of flat earth. I think he even said Nathan Roberts was the head of Doctrinal or something. What did he say?
Yes, yeah. The straw manning was massive with and Nathan Roberts, out of all people, why not Nathan Thompson?
Right. What is Roberts even doing? Is he even in flat earth at all? No, he's gone. He got all pissed at everybody and things like that.
Yeah. So I think that for me, it took. I wouldn't have waited as long as Pastor Odell waited. He waited like almost
to go up there and say something mean.
45 to 50 minutes to say, hey, you're straw manning.
Yeah.
You're debating somebody else, like debate my arguments. But I'm sure there was a lot of pressure with everyone there being live and everything. And he was promised, Pastor Odell said that he was promised that they would have some sort of format and that he would be able to give a response, like a rebuttal.
Right.
But when he, like you're talking about, he realized that Pastor Locke wasn't actually giving any kind of real rebuttal. He was just like preaching and just like hyping up the crowd. And then
it's like cheap pops, they call them in wrestling. If you're a wrestler and you go out there and you just say like, we love you, Austin, and then the crowd goes crazy, it's a cheap pop because anybody can do that. You can just go out, you say the hometown's name and the crowd goes crazy. He was kind of like doing that, like just every chance he got, say something really hyped up about, and we here at this church we do, and then everybody goes crazy. And like I was saying last time, I said when he mentioned that East and West don't work on a flat earth, what he was describing is exactly what happens on a flat earth, that you can never reach East or West because they're always in circles. And he was doing that little walk around, and he was like, yeah, that's how it works, dipshit. That is what does he think circumnavigate means? And he's like, circumnavigation isn't a circle. Oh, that's weird to put the word.
He gave himself away within like 20 minutes of his actual speech and presentation when he said, I haven't even researched this until I agreed to the debate.
I know, but that's not even true because he's obviously been looking into it, at least for the.
But even still, like it's so disingenuous as it's so irresponsible as a pastor.
True.
You would. Like I tell people on my channel all the time, the stuff I talk about, I've researched for years.
Right. Would you ever get in front of a huge audience like that, in front of a crowd, and then be like, oh, I haven't researched this at all? It's like, what? Okay.
No, I don't talk about stuff I don't research for years. Right. So for him to say, I haven't even researched this until I agreed to this debate, and then to flippantly throw a $30,000 wager
Right.
which is not at all a righteous thing to do according to scripture. Like, just it's a waste of money, and it's his parishioners' money. Like, he didn't even say it was his own money.
Yeah, I know. And then I looked up his net worth. It must be wrong because I saw one site said 129 million. I don't know how he would have that much money. But if he did, I figured out what $30,000 would be of that, and it would be the equivalent of a person with 100,000 spending $11. So
Yeah,
it's not if he's having to go get Texan people, farmers, to pay for his little balloon flight. And what's that going to do? He doesn't realize that we can send balloons up ourselves 120,000 feet, and then we do that.
or just that we've already have done that,
Yeah.
because he'd research for 5 seconds and found that out.
Right. It costs like $1,000 to do, and he wants to send a person up there in 50,000 or for 100. What do you say? $50,000. It's like for 49,000, we can still find out the same thing. So,
Well, it's hyperbole, right? So like they sending a person up in a capsule as opposed to just sending a camera up on a balloon by yourself. It's sexier to send a person up in a capsule and to threaten somebody with, prove to me the earth is flat. I'll send you up in a capsule. I'll pay. I'm cool because I negotiated it down to 50,000
Right.
from 75,000.
I called the guys. I
grand
called the
scheme.
guys from that balloon place. I called them. Oh,
Right.
wow. You have a phone? I
Right.
didn't know you had a phone.
It's just
Really impressive.
grandstanding. Yeah.
Yeah. It
It was an embarrassment, honestly. So I've been a Christian all my life, but it's an embarrassment, man, that this guy has a huge following on Facebook. You may know, but he's got like over 2
Millions,
million
right?
followers on
Yeah.
Facebook.
yeah.
And he's coming up there not prepared, just doing nothing.
Do you think
to
that's a
engage
good
with
thing
slander and
ultimately?
ad hominems.
I guess from your perspective, because I don't look at it from a Christian perspective, so I look at it as a good thing. I don't see anything wrong with this at all because I see it all positive. And I'm kind of thinking now, just for the first time, I'm like, oh, maybe you think because he represented Christianity that it looks bad on Christians. So a position I didn't even think of. Right this second.
No, it's just from someone that dedicates my life to accurately trying to represent the scriptures in context and be responsible with it, and to see someone so brazenly irresponsible with it, it just digs at me personally. But
Right.
I agree with you. The congregants in his church and anyone watching that's a Christian that's on the fence about this topic, this was incredible for them to see the bad fruit that comes from this doctrine. It's just like Trinitarians, the Globies, it produces nothing but wicked fruit, because it's not a doctrine based on the scriptures. So what the scriptures teach is that if you have sound doctrine, it's going to produce love. If you have the right sound doctrine, it produces love. It doesn't produce wickedness and manipulation. All we saw tonight was ad hom, manipulation, straw manning, mockery. It was just, yeah.
The one part I really
it is
liked
good for the fence sitters to see what happened tonight. You're right.
when he said that. I'm trying to remember the one thing he said. Now I can't find the form because I had it written down. He said, what was the word that he was talking about? When there was a word that Odell said, and then he went and he showed what, and then he was wrong. And I said, even when he said it, I was like, oh yeah, believes in multiple worlds. So he was talking about right. And I said, I bet you that's not what the word says in Hebrew, which you have to give Austin credit for that. Austin completely flipped me. Now I can't read anything on the English Bible without going immediately to the Hebrew or the Greek, because it's just, I feel like the English version is crap. So I just like get rid of that. But as soon as he said that,
poorly translated English words. Yeah.
Yeah. So as soon as he said worlds, and I was like, no, I bet you that word is not what he thinks it is. And then sure enough, Dean Odell comes up and says, no, you know what that means? It means eons, ages, which again, then it makes sense. So for a pastor to, get that kind of stuff wrong, what I was saying about the East and West being circles, let's say that there's no flat earthers there and it's just his congregation, and he makes that same statement, oh, East and West, and it doesn't work on a flat, they would all go crazy. And they would, he would feel so vindicated because so that's the problem with these guys, is that they're used to being such patted on the back, I think, every day, that he just feels like he can just get up there and say anything and the whole audience is going to fall over themselves.
Well, you're also watching one of the most flamboyant like internet pastors that have become more popular because there's an internet presence.
Okay.
Because like this is not a normal pastor, brother. I don't, I know that.
Well, I don't know. My brother
grew up in like Protestant churches, but Protestant, like Methodist, Baptist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, like even a lot of Assembly of God and other style Protestant evangelical churches, they're not like this guy. This guy is like level 1000. Everyone else is like a level 5. Like this dude is already way over the top in everything he does anyway.
Right.
And so this was probably the perfect setup for this type of discussion.
Yeah, it was good. I think a lot of people were going to get see what, I mean, there's no way you can watch this as a Christian and be like, oh, the globe earth was just nailed. I mean, you would have to be like, what just happened? Like what? That was the proving of the earth as a globe from the biblical standpoint. There wasn't one bit of evidence, not one. So I was really thinking, maybe he has something. He didn't have anything. So it's like, okie dokie. What about
we
him
were doing
saying,
a review on our channel, and what I said like early on was, this guy's got nothing but like month-old arguments. Like the dude that just heard about FE yesterday and all those initial knee-jerk arguments.
Right.
He had done no research.
He literally
whatsoever.
watched Professor Dave's video because he
That's right.
pulled the whole parabolic thing, which if anybody says that, you immediately know where they got that from, and it's immediately wrong. It's, Dave didn't understand that a parabola can be in different shapes. It doesn't have to be just the little N looking thing or like the Star Trek sign looking thing. I was going to ask you something else. Oh, you said he's a little bit flamboyant. I said he was a little cum si cum sa. He seemed a little light in the loafers for me. I don't know, just observation. He did too many pirouettes for me.
I don't know. I just know that
Too many pirouettes.
there are pastors that are like this, man. I mean, the people that support this pastor, that go to this church regularly, I want to say this as sincerely as possible. I'm not saying this. I'm not trying to say this to be crude, or I'm not trying to say this to just to sound edgy or nothing. But people that fall for pastors like that, they don't have a grounding in the scriptures, and they're highly impressionable, and so they will cheer whatever he says. So
yeah,
it's rough.
and as long as I think you want to tell people what they want to hear, and then people tend to respond to that. I mean, I've noticed that with YouTube. It's something I didn't expect, and I think it's more. Yeah, I think more people are followers in this world than I ever thought before. People who just follow, and I get why, because I used to be one, and it was because I had a full-time job and I had a kid and I've got a life, and so I really didn't have time for anything else. So you really have no choice sometimes but to follow somebody who you like the way they talk, or you like how they act, and then you just kind of almost adopt their beliefs, and then that person can get away with anything, really. It's kind of get scary. So because then that person can really start to take advantage, and I'm afraid most people will do that. But because if you go against everything that people want to hear, if you do things like I do, like tell people don't listen to me, do your own research, well, I'm basically giving homework assignments. Who the hell wants that? People are like, no, tell me the truth. I'm watching your shows. You do it, not so you go tell me to research. So I think that I just wish that somebody would show themselves to be like this. Like, imagine if we get 6 months from now and the guy, I mean, now like he can never see it because of the way he acted, right? I mean, I can't picture it. I would love to see one day.
It would take like an actual act of God, in my opinion. Yeah,
Jesus would need to come down and we all see him, and then him go, oh, I get it now. It's just so high that we can still see him up there.
Yeah, it's funny. Someone in the live chats mentioned Steven Anderson. Like this guy, Greg Locke, he's like trying to give Steven Anderson a run for his money. You remember Celebrity Deathmatch on MTV?
Yeah.
If we could get Steven Anderson and Pastor Greg Locke, Claymation Celebrity Deathmatch.
Would you say that there's? I mean, if you were to, I guess I don't know if you know this, but like, what is he top 10 pastors in the United States?
I don't know.
Or would that be a stretch? I don't know how you would even gauge.
Probably
that.
A stretch, because you've got some OG people in the Word of Faith movement, like
name one.
Jesse Duplantis, Benny Hinn, Joyce Meyer, like the Creflo Dollar. Those people, they got huge audiences, and they're worth billions of dollars.
What about like Greg Laurie?
Greg Laurie is pretty OG, but he's in a much softer. He's not like I don't think he's Word of Faith or like Name It, Claim It, Prosperity Gospels type guy. So he doesn't get as much, and he doesn't.
What do you call it?
Have as big of an internet presence as some of these other people do.
Okay. Because my brother-in-law is involved in all that, and
okay,
it's pretty.
I don't. And as far as Greg Laurie, his particular flavor of Christianity and like what doctrines he promotes the most, I don't know that much about him. I just know that he's not a Word of Faith prosperity teacher like some of these other guys.
No, he's not like a Joel Osteen or
no,
but they're just very, it's the Christian rock music, and I don't really have a problem with that. I guess growing up as a Catholic and going to church my whole life, it definitely is a shocker to walk into a church and see, like, when I walked into my brother-in-law's church, there's like a bar at the front where they're like serving coffee and who wants Red Bulls for $5, and then you get inside the church and there's like commercials playing, like worship on. It said actually this. It said worship on Red Bull, $5 at the. Swear to God. And I'm like looking next to me, there's like a lady with a dog.
Yeah, exactly. Literally the symbolism of Baal is
good call.
The cans that they're drinking in the service.
It was funny, but oh man, it's just
man. There's a lot of deceived people out there because again, they don't have a grounding in the actual scriptures that they claim to have faith in. We talk about this all the time on our channel. People call us a cult. And I'm the one that's telling them to read their Bible and look up the definitions of the words and come to their own conclusions. And they still call me a cult. But you get people like this Greg Locke guy who just is shouting at the audience, we're done with this nonsense. Get the band up here. Get the flag wavers. We're going to do something spiritual tonight and praise the Lord. And you're like, bro, you just acted in the worst fruit possible. and it's got film. You got caught in 4K,
You know, they pulled
and
it
now
down.
you're just going to try to turn it with the wave of the hand and say, "Let's get spiritual and bring the band up here." Like, what is this?
Did
Like,
you hear they
it
pulled it down
sounds-
already? They pulled down that live stream, I guess.
Yeah, they did, but
Yeah.
I got it. I'm going to clip it and I'm going to keep it, and it's
Good.
going to be.
Mine's kind of on, but I also had a list of his scorecard up there that I was keeping track of all the things he was saying. I thought it was going to be lies that he was telling about the globe, and then it turned into me writing things that, you know, it basically says believes in science only when talking about the globe, huh? Because he's like, you know, basically, I don't believe in evolution. I don't believe all these things, but it's like, okay, but those things are on Earth. You can actually go test and play with them. So the place that's outside the Earth that we can never go to, they're telling the truth about that. That makes a lot of sense, Greg. About evolution, that you can actually go do experiments and actually check things. No, that they're lying about. But about the space worlds 25 trillion miles away, they're definitely telling the truth about that. Oh,
Man,
boy.
there's it's like layers, like an onion. You know, I think a lot of truthers probably talk about this. You know, as like peeling away the levels of deception.
Right.
And when it comes to Christianity, the levels of deception do not stop just obviously at biblical cosmology. It goes much deeper. You know, the Trinity is a huge layer on that onion, because that gets connected. Something that this Pastor Graylock brought up tonight, and he was talking about how Jesus is God. That's a Trinitarian statement.
Right.
And if you don't believe that, he made an inference, a threatening inference, that then therefore.
Yeah, what did he say?
I can't. I'd have to go back and find the exact.
Yeah,
clip,
right
but
after he
it's the
said
same thing.
something, it was like, if
Yeah,
you,
they all do the same type of threatening spiritual manipulation.
then you're a
They'll
baby or
say-
something. You're a baby who needs your diaper changed or something.
Right. Yeah. If you don't believe that Jesus is God, then, you know, basically
like that.
alluding to like you don't understand the Bible, and because they basically will come out and say you're not a Christian if you don't believe in the Trinity.
Right.
We do Trinity debates on our channel all the time, dismantling the Trinity and how it's a Gnostic idea that was brought about by philosophers in the early Eastern Orthodox Church. So they hate that. They hate that when I bring that up, the actual history of where this idea came from, and it's
Right.
not scriptural at all. But yet the Eastern Orthodox and the Catholic churches promote it as a staple of the faith. If you don't believe it, you're out of the church. This guy has the same attitude. That's why he was so flippant to kick out Dean Odell tonight, because he was like, "Oh, you're a Bible denier, get out." You know, and that kind of attitude is
Jeez.
not what Christians need.
When he knows
Yeah.
that that's not the case. Nobody, Dean's not up there. Actually, he's actually trying to apply the Bible truthfully. And this guy's, you're a Bible denier. No, what? By giving you the truth about what worlds the actual Hebrew word was for that? I have to ask you if you've ever heard of this. I mentioned it earlier. I might be wrong. Is there not a story that the way that they came up with what books go in the Bible was they put them all on a podium and checked which one fell off? Have you never heard that story?
No,
I gotta
they had
find this,
different
man.
Councils.
There's a
Yeah,
sto-
different councils. Yeah.
Yeah, but they said at one of the councils that they put the books and they said God will choose, and then then books fell off the thing, and they said, okay, these are not. I gotta find this story. That's the real story. I've heard it. I've read it somewhere. God darn it! I
I've
wish I
never
knew
heard
where.
it, but all I know is that different Christian communities around, you know, the last 2,000 years, they didn't agree on which books went in, so they all had different collections of books. And so it's just in the modern America, we have the Protestant canon, which was left over from the Catholic canon.
Right.
So the average American doesn't realize that there were other collections of scriptures that, like the Syriac collection, the Armenian collection, the Ethiopian collection. They just don't understand their history, because no one goes to church when they get saved and they put their faith in Christ. Most churches do not have a class that says this is how we got our Bible.
True.
So
I've
no
never
one
seen
knows.
that. And then was it? I was confused when he said Enoch didn't write Enoch, so therefore we're not supposed to believe Enoch. What books of the Bible were written by the people's names that are said to have written them? Nobody, right? I mean, not very
Well,
many. Not very many.
technically, a lot of them. But for example, like after the Babylonian exile and return of the Israelites, mostly specific tribes from Judah, Israel, Simeon, came back from Babylon in the 6th century BC. The prophet and priest Ezra, he rescribed all of the books. Him and the other scribes, he had like 40 something dudes with him, and they all rescribed all the scrolls of scripture that they had at the time.
Mhm.
And scholars today will try to claim that the book of First Enoch, its first manuscript appearance in history, showed up in the 3rd century BC. And so that's why they claim, but that just because you find a manuscript and you date it back to the 3rd century doesn't mean that's when it's written, because they were constantly copying them for future generations. But that's the argument they're in. But then you've got people like Christ, Peter, Paul, and Jude in the New Testament quoting from ideas only found in First Enoch. So you've got a theological issue here.
Right.
And people, he obviously hasn't done his research on First Enoch either.
Yeah, no, I noticed that, and I just it's baffling to me that he holds so strongly onto the globe when, I mean, usually it takes somebody just thinking about it, and then if you're a Christian, I don't get it. Then I really struggle, because you have to look at the Bible and go, oh yeah. And the things that were brought up, like him saying, what was the one that Dean Odell said about Jesus that I didn't even think about? There was one early on Dean Odell was talking about. There's some line that Jesus said that I was like, oh, I never even thought about that, but that's true. That you know, the globe doesn't work there. What did Jesus say?
I don't.
Can't remember.
You mean Matthew 4:8, where he talked about Satan taking Jesus up to a high mountain?
No, it was one that Dean brought up. One of his proofs was a Bible verse and Jesus said something. I don't remember what it was, but anyway, it was just there's still verses that I hear where I'm like, oh man. And then the clay seal thing one, I mean, we even went back and looked at it. I'm like, that it's not at all talking about the sunset. I mean, he's talking about, right. So, I mean, again, this is one of the issues I have, is that I feel like when you have words on paper, and I've seen it happen where people can take them and make them whatever they want. And then if you just have somebody who's going to say, okay, because I agree that we can go back and then we get the Hebrew word. And then from there, but he wouldn't even let us go back there. He still was like, oh no, worlds. Oh, it means planets and this and that. Okay, then Dean took it back to the Hebrew, and then he wouldn't even like listen to him. He's like, no, you're wrong. You're making that up. Well, what do you mean? He's like, no, that's the. I looked it up. So
speaking of the sunrise, that's a specific point that I wish they could have got into, but there was no chance. Basically, in Psalm 19:6, it talks about the sun running forth like a bridegroom from the chamber, and it's going on its circuit. And Pastor Dean Odell did try to bring up the idea that a circuit would not be synonymous with the heliocentric model. No. That's why the Bible describes it above a flat circle of earth going in a circuit in the firmament above where it was placed. But the word is loosely translated as rising. The sun rises to its and goes forth in its circuit. But that word in English is a poor, loose translation. The word rise, it's actually the word matzah, in not matzah like the bread, but matzo, and it means to go forth.
Right. Okay.
So it doesn't mean to rise up and down.
But even rising is like Dean did a great job of explaining a plane coming at you from the horizon, because we would all describe that as the plane is rising. It certainly looks that
perspective way. The perspective rise. Yeah. And then did you hear when Pastor Locke said, he said, Dean, you did not bring up any verses that mention the flat earth. You just talked about the firmament. I was like, this dude hasn't researched anything about this topic.
Oh, and then I said, one of the straw men he told her, I was like, you're limiting God. He's like, oh, well, because there's a dome, now God can't bless his grace down here. I'm like, dude, you just made it so God can't even get through the firmament. We never said that.
Yeah.
The firmament so we can't get out, not so God can't bring his grace down here, loser.
Yeah, at one point, Pastor Locke, he made a comment in his presentation before Dean got up there as a rebuttal, and Pastor Locke said, see all this language about God walking and riding on the clouds? That's just metaphor. That doesn't happen. But yet Jesus says in Matthew 24:29 that he's going to come back on the clouds of heaven as he comes back to bring peace on the earth and rout the wicked. And you're like, so is that a metaphor? Is Jesus not coming back through the clouds,
right,
from the sky above? Like, there's no consistency in his argument.
No, well, his consistency is if whatever it has to take for it to be globe related, then that's what it is. So if it's a metaphor, right, then it's literal. It's so whatever he's got. Well, there is no literal, so he couldn't go there. So it's just all down to metaphor and hyperbole, which is a joke, which shouldn't. I don't think that's in the Bible. I haven't heard much hyperbole in that Bible,
because he didn't even listen to Pastor Odell explain what the firmament was. The Pastor Odell defined it, which I was super happy about.
Yeah,
but yet that's what Pastor Locke ignored repeatedly was the actual definition of the firmament. He won't define the word heaven, which is the word for the firmament, because it assumes an enclosed cosmology. So that's why he had to stay away from it at all costs.
Yep, I was trying to see if I could find this, man. I know I've heard the story before, but I'm not seeing it anywhere. As it say here, noticing damn.
So, Jaron, you'll actually appreciate this. We tomorrow I'm doing a show. It's called Honor of Kings.
Okay.
And it's you asked me about the different collection of canons and the councils and everything.
Yes.
How they chose which books go in the Bible. So the different Christian communities in ages past that had those councils and they decided which books go in. None of those people had authority from God to do that. That was just their own man-made ideas, right?
Right.
So we've actually decided, you know what? Me and my buddy Ken Heiderbrecht, we do this show called Honor of Kings, and we just started season 4 this year, and we're inviting other Christian YouTubers who are competent in the Bible to join us, and we're calling it the Council of Nice to See You instead of the Council of Nice.
Wait a second. So wait, because the other day I watched a show that you were on, and there was some jerk. He was the worst guy I've ever seen in my life. He was like challenging you on everything, just like making shit up. Who's that guy?
Was it a debate or was it?
No, it was like there was like 6 people on the screen or maybe 5, and he was just like thought he was so cool, man. Just like, oh,
was it the Assyrian guy, Sam Shamoun?
Yes, it was that guy. Who is that guy?
Dude is a hardcore Trinitarian on YouTube.
Oh,
that
man.
just berates people, and he thinks that's debating.
Yeah, it's just
was
terrible.
The one where I was eating food and just ignoring him?
Yeah, and he was like, I'm gonna shame you. Oh, just wait, I'm gonna get you, just acting like he was like gonna fight you or something. It was just so dirtbag. I was like, does this guy think that looks
I was
good?
supposed to go on that broadcast to do a Q&A with the audience, but the people that invited me on, it was just a setup so that they could get me in the room with that Sam Shamoun guy.
Oh, that guy's, I mean, what a joke. And yeah, you think he's not even making any sense, and he just changes everything he's saying. And oh yeah, well, what about, he was terrible. I can't even try and act like him.
So yeah, man, tomorrow we're actually doing Honor of Kings, episode 2 of season 4, and we're literally mocking the ancient, and not mocking in a joking way. We're like a mock, M-O-U-C-K, is that how you spell it?
Yes.
Like a mock-up of the councils of old,
right?
So that we can have our own modern council and look at some of these books that weren't put into some of the canons and kind of review them and see why. So
what books are you talking about? Name a couple.
Tomorrow we're looking at the Epistle of Barnabas.
Okay.
Some Christian communities had it in their canon and some didn't. We've already looked at books like Enoch. We've looked at books like the Prayer of Azariah. We've looked at.
I like the one where Jesus is a child. Have you seen that one? What is that, Thomas?
We haven't done that one yet.
Okay, that's a good one. I like that book.
So yeah, you might like it because we go through a systematic process of evaluation, as if we were there 1800 years ago with these dudes, because it was all arbitrary anyway, and that's what we're trying to teach modern Christians is to say, look, this self-imposed authority of the church that just comes along and says, we're your priests now, we get to choose what is scripture and what's not, you should listen to us. But the problem is the average person needs to know the books that are being held up as scripture, are they consistent with the message that they all say? So whether you believe in God or the Bible or not, that's kind of a different conversation. But if you're in the faith, you at some point you run into this weirdness, especially with the internet, and you can look at information worldwide, you run into this weird contradiction, where you're like, why do the Ethiopians have like 80 books, but the Americans have 66? And they both claim they're Christians. What's going on here?
Right.
What do those other books say? Like the Ethiopians in their canon, they have Jubilees and Enoch, which clears up a whole bunch of questions that Americans always have because they only have 66. They don't have as much information. So we're doing a mock-up council. It's called Honor of Kings. You might like
it. What about, isn't there a Book of Mary?
I haven't heard of that one yet.
Okay. I didn't know. I remember looking into a bunch of I have that 2,700 book PDF, 2,700 PDF books on my Telegram channel, and it's there's a whole bunch of stuff in there about what do they call it, like pseudographica, something like that?
Yeah, pseudepigrapha. That just means like who they don't know who wrote it, and so they falsely attribute it to somebody just to give it some sort of authorship.
Right. I will find that story for you though, because I do want you to read it and see what you think. It was basically like, if I remember the story right, they were at one of the councils and they had a bunch of books and they wanted to get rid of some of them, and then they put them on a pillar and like shook it, and whatever books fell off, they said, okay, those ones are out, and then the ones that stayed on are in. I've heard this. I don't know. Maybe I was dreaming. Maybe I have weird dreams like that. It's possible. It's possible. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. What channel is that on your channel tomorrow?
Let's say that again.
Is that on your channel tomorrow?
Yeah, it'll be on Kingdom Context tomorrow.
And what time?
It's like, I think we're doing a 4 p.m. Mountain Standard, so that'll be 3 p.m. your time.
3. Okay, sounds good. We've got Glowbusters, I think, in the morning. Wait, it's tomorrow? Yeah, getting confused on what day it is. All right, and then there's
man. Congratulations on your summits. I hear those are going well.
They are going well.
I appreciate you having me on last time for that summit.
Did you ever find out what happened when you were on?
What do you mean?
I mean, you heard what happened while you were giving your presentation?
No, I didn't hear it.
Oh God.
What happened?
Oh my God. I'll tell you after. I'll tell you offline. I'll text you when I get off here in a second. I can't believe no one's told you. They probably didn't want to tell you, and I probably shouldn't either, but now that I've said that, I have to tell you. But let's just say we had to scramble real quick during your presentation. I'll text you in a few minutes. Thanks, brother. All right, take it easy.
Have a good night.
Peace. All right, that was Sean, Kingdom in Context. Check him out if you like tomorrow.